Well, good evening, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and welcome to tonight's Joe Chaffee show on April 24th, 2019, 7:30 Eastern Time. Hope everybody had a great day, as we still are kind of in a quiet mode overall across the U.S., but we do have some systems in play now as we head into the weekend and next week. A few changes going on in the long-range pattern that are going to kind of be difficult to assess because of the fact that we're still at that time of year where, at least in the Northeast, the onshore flow is always problematic, and that's something that we have to consider. Remember, I talked about this over the last number of days with regards to a strengthening ridge in the east that usually means warmer than average temperatures. But in the springtime, you got to see where those surface highs are, and if you have a ridge in the east, it could mean a high that's up in New England somewhere or in southeastern Canada, feeding you an onshore flow. It's all fine and dandy to be warmer than normal if you live at 5,000 feet or higher, but we don't. We live on the ground, obviously. And as a result, you could wind up with odd situations with marine air and temperatures that have a tough time of getting out of the 50s, while other areas not that far away, outside of the onshore flow, climb up into the 80s. So we're going to set up tonight's show here. Let's get to the first map. And that first map is the watches and warnings, and there aren't very much. It's very quiet here across the U.S. On both coasts, you still have the flood advisories and various flood warnings for the snowmelt that is continuing. And other than that, we have an area of flood watches up in parts of northeast Texas, and also a working severe thunderstorm watch that is going on in southeast Texas. And that's really it. Other than that, it's just a very quiet time. The storminess of the last few weeks played itself out. Now, of course, the pattern's kind of transitioning, sort of waiting to see where it all goes in the coming days. So as far as severe weather is concerned, we are dealing with a small area tonight where there's some risk for severe weather, and that is, again, in Texas. Today it shifted further east into southeast Texas. If you look closely, you can see the line of storms that is moving through at the moment through the severe thunderstorm watch area. That slight risk extends through East Texas and into the western half of Louisiana, with an area of marginal risk that goes a bit further to the east. Now, we'll see how long that line holds up as we go through the overnight period. The Storm Prediction Center's risk area for tomorrow is, if I can, I have to get the window up. Hang on one second here, folks. There we go. So let's bring this up full screen. So here's where we're going with severe weather risk for tomorrow, and it shifts eastward into southeast Louisiana and southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, and into the Florida Panhandle, with that smaller area of marginal risk lying to the north. We also have a risk of general thunderstorms up in northern New Mexico, southern Colorado, west-northwestward through Utah, Nevada, and into much of eastern California. Looks like it lines up along and east of the Sierra Nevadas. And with regards to the next day, severe weather, this is going to be for Friday. Now, this is where we do have a cold front approaching the East Coast. Now, this is a bit of a change. I was suspecting that SPC might do this, but it looks like they've added an area of marginal risk now for north. I guess that's northeastern South Carolina, best way to describe it, and much of North Carolina, and a good chunk of southeastern Virginia, and that northern edge of it runs up into the Delmarva Peninsula, but not quite to the Delaware state line. General thunderstorms pushed up into southern New England and Long Island. I'm not 100% sure whether this area might get extended further to the north. It's possible. I think you might want to maybe nudge it up to southern New Jersey. But that's really going to depend on the warm sector and how far north it gets. The other area of marginal risk will be covering much of the state of Florida except the northwest and the extreme southern part of the state. And this is for Friday. And going beyond days 4 through 8, we have predictability seen too low through the day 4 to 8 day time frame. So that probably means that there's a shot for severe weather somewhere, but the parameters are such that they can't really put any kind of risk to it, assess any kind of risk to it at this stage of the game. So let's backtrack now and take a look at our surface map tonight, which has yesterday's weather front is way offshore with low pressure sitting in the Gulf of Maine that is trailing down across Virginia. So we are beginning to set up this frontal boundary / warm front that is going to start moving northward as we move into Thursday night into Friday into the northeast. And that front kind of snakes down into northwestern Arkansas and down into Texas. And of course, if you take a look at what's going on in East Texas right now, you've got temperatures in the 60s and low 70s and dew points to match. So it's a pretty saturated atmosphere here. And that is triggering off some thunderstorms as you got the shortwave trough that's also moving on through. That is part of the equation for the weekend. For Friday, the other part is low pressure that's way up in Hudson Bay, but you got this trailing cold front that runs down into the northern plains. There's another shortwave that's swinging down in the northern stream, and that's going to hook up with that southern stream shortwave. It seems like it's creating a slightly more dynamic picture for Friday. But we got to get there first, and we are going to see some changes along the way. First off, the satellite loop tonight will start tight with the northeast and perfectly sandwiched in between high clouds to the southwest. That's part of that warm front getting underway. And, of course, you still have cloud cover in upstate New York and up through interior New England with the low that's sitting in the Gulf of Maine. And as we can I go further south with this? I think I can go a little further south. On the other side of that high cloudiness today in southern Virginia, North and South Carolina, it was just an absolutely terrific day. And here's the look tonight from what's going on in Texas. Many areas, the areas that got hit yesterday, the area of risk only shifted a little bit to the east. This is not exactly flying out of the out of the southwest, this southern shortwave. It's really taking its sweet time. But if you look closely, it's a little, well, it's kind of hard to see it in here in terms of the blow up of thunderstorms. Yesterday they were pretty obvious, but you got a lot of cloud cover here that covers East Texas, so it's probably masking. Usually you can pick. I'm kind of seeing where those cloud tops are, but you have to really strain to find them. But we can definitely find them on the radar, so we might as well take a look at this and get really close. There's a nice looking squall line of thunderstorms on the radar as of 7:38 Eastern Time. Please always remember, if you're watching this on a replay, that obviously the radars are dated, and you want to make sure you have the latest weather information regarding the any severe weather that might be going on in your particular area. So please go to your local National Weather Service office website, and you can access that by going to weather.gov. Nice cluster of thunderstorms, heavy rains. Looks like it's raining pretty heavily right now per the radar up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and this area moving up to the northeast. You've got other showers in parts of Arkansas. Then you got another cluster that's moving through southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, and into southern Indiana, and there are a few thunderstorms embedded there right along the Kentucky state line. Also, a few showers tonight showing up well off the coast of North Carolina. They are offshore, and a little bit of action going on in New Mexico. Notice the echoes here are moving north to south, so that's the west side of that shortwave that is now moving through western Texas and swinging eastward, carrying this southern system along. A couple of scattered showers in California. Then you've got, by the way, that northern stream shortwave moving in, and that's producing some showers up through the northern plains, and some showers and probably some snow in some of the higher elevations as you head up into parts of Montana. So these two, the system in the north and the system in the south, are going to do a bit of a phase as they move along to the east. The full even before we get to that, let's go tighten up. Let's tighten up on what's happening right now. This is from SPC's website. If you go to spc.noaa.gov and go to their mesoscale analysis page, you can pull this up and have a whole lot of fun with it. But the light blue, that's your remaining severe thunderstorm watch as of 7:41 p.m. Eastern Time, 6:41 Central. The radar is overlaid on it. The squall line is pretty active here, and that is continuing its move toward the east and northeast. And we're going to see this start to shift now into East Texas and eventually into western Louisiana. Just to put the surface obs on here, and the temperatures, oddly enough, you have very warm tropical air, and that's evident by where you see temperatures in the mid to upper 70s and even a few low 80s along the Texas coast. And there's probably some kind of frontal boundary here. The winds are all over the place in different directions on the other side of that severe thunderstorm watch, but the temperatures are a lot lower. They're in the low to mid 60s, and to the south, you've got temperatures in the mid 70s to near 80, and dew points in the upper 60s. So there's definitely some kind of weak frontal boundary that sits in there where you're seeing this severe weather being triggered. And the other area I just want to look at is in the northeast, because you do have weak high pressure playing through. The pressure patterns in the east, they're not really well defined. The highs are weak, the lows are weak, and you've got this frontal boundary that's setting up just south of that 1012 isobar. That's where you have that stationary boundary that eventually is going to become a warm front. And of course, the other thing that's going to happen is we're going to be setting up with a bit of an onshore flow as we move into Thursday. So we'll jump to the NAM model here, the late afternoon run of the NAM, which I thought was pretty dynamic to a certain extent anyway. But there's your southern stream shortwave and your northern stream producing very little in the way of showers going into Thursday. Now, the warm front is a little hard to find here. Again, the setup we're in right now, it's not like we're dealing with some kind of wrapped up cyclone. But if you look closely, the isobars here are coming in, going east to west from Delmarva northward. So you've got this onshore flow. I don't know if I buy these light showers that the model is showing for late tomorrow afternoon. I suppose it's possible, given what's on the radar, that something might break off and run to the northeast. I did not include them in my own forecast for my area. I left them out. I got my fingers crossed that's right. But the key to Friday is going to be the warm front getting to the north. And it tries, certainly, because you see this little this east-west band of showers going into Friday morning that develops over Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, and into southern New England. By 8 a.m., much of that is north of New York City. You've got a surface low in western Pennsylvania with a trailing cold front. Now, one of the issues with regards to the development of thunderstorms is timing. With regards to the time of day, you want to see the the timing of the cold front sort of matching up with the maximum daytime heating. And in this particular instance, with the front already pretty far to the east by Friday morning, I just don't know how much daytime heating you're going to be able to pull off. The warm front kind of gets stuck here around New York City and Long Island, edges its way through. But if you look how the isobars, they come southwestward, then they start to curve. So given the time of year, you get these things sometimes, they wind up getting stuck. And another thing that happens is when you get these warm fronts and the cold front comes through rather quickly, you get a little bit of development in terms of showers with the cold front. With the warm front, sometimes that in a sense zaps some of the energy out of the air, so that gives the cold front less for it to work on. Nonetheless, the model does fire up some downpours and some thunderstorms here late Friday afternoon into Friday night as the low runs up into upstate New York, and then gradually that front moves offshore and then marches away, leading to a better day on Saturday. Although the gradient is going to be a bit on the tight side, so we'll probably have some gusty winds. Saturday looks like a pretty nice day for much of the east, except for Maine and maybe into easternmost Massachusetts and Cape Cod. But if you got to pick one of the 2 weekend days, Sunday, I think, Saturday is the day. Because right on the heels of that, here comes the next low, moving into Iowa, and that is snow that is showing up through parts of the Dakotas and into Minnesota. It's a tight little upper air system and shortwave that moves through. So I imagine that whatever falls, if it falls at night, it might stick. If it falls during the day, it probably won't. The air up here is not exactly overly cold. And here's your low, which on the last frame of the NAM is Saturday evening, is sitting in northwestern Illinois. Now, one of the changes that the models have indicated, because of the depth of the lead system, models being a bit more robust with this, particularly the European, by the way, with that low sitting up in New Brunswick and not really running away to the northeast, it kind of forces this next system to drop down to the south. Here's the, I'm going to bring up the upper air, and you can see the short waves in play. First off, there's your southern stream shortwave moving through Texas. Relatively vigorous here, but it kind of opens up as we move through time into Friday. And your northern stream shortwave is dropping in and phasing, and that trough kind of starts to sharpen. If it were to sharpen up and go negative a bit faster, I would probably be more bullish with regards to severe weather in the mid-Atlantic states, and maybe even up to my neck of the woods for Friday. It'll be something that I would watch. At this point, if you see how that southern shortwave from Virginia on southward by Friday night is still kind of hanging separate from that northern stream, it's not until we get to early Saturday morning that the northern part of the trough just kind of strengthens there, and you've got this closed upper low up in New England. And right behind it is the next one. Now, this is the one that you see back into Wisconsin now. That's your shortwave that is going to be dropping in into the east for Sunday. And one of the critical questions with the surface low getting suppressed to some degree, who's going to be on the north side of that and who's going to be on the south side? The shortwave just kind of moves along. It doesn't really dig or amplify all that much. It just kind of moves along. And then we've been talking about the fact that the ridge of the east is going to come back, try to build next week, and models are showing this, particularly the European. But the problem is going to be where is the surface high going to be, the onshore flow that's going to result for a couple of days. And plus we still have, although it's hard to see, but there is a short wave that's embedded in there near the Great Lakes. And there's probably a second one in there. Then the other one is coming along and swinging in the plains by the end of the week. So I'm thinking what will happen is that we'll probably have to spend the first half of next week dealing with, for my area anyway, dealing with an onshore flow. But the boundary line is going to be not too far away, and areas to the south, particularly if you go, say, from southern Maryland, the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula southward, I think it could get pretty warm next week with this ridge building in the east. For your area, it's easy. For my area, it's difficult because if I'm going to be on the other side of that front, and my area is generally eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, if I'm going to be on the other side of that frontal boundary, I'm going to have an east wind. I'm going to deal with an onshore flow, and that is not fun. All right, we'll come back to this in a second. I want to just show you the temperatures with regards to the situation for Friday and the dilemma. Okay. With respect to severe weather. So now here's your high temperature map. Well, the 2 o'clock temperatures. So it's close to the high temperature map. Just tack on a couple of degrees to some of these numbers if you want to get an idea of what the daytime highs are going to be. But you'll notice 80s in the Carolinas, particularly in central and eastern North and South Carolina, eastern Georgia, and southeastern Virginia. So there's your very warm air that is coming up. And then on Friday, it tries to push up, but you see here's the difference. When we had the thunderstorms from back last Friday, your warm sector was your front was pretty far to the west, and that allowed for a significant amount of daytime heating to occur across South and North Carolina, much of the state of Virginia, and up into Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey. Well, you're not really seeing that here. You're seeing the heated air, the superheated air, really kind of confined to the coastal areas. And with regards to the dew points, which of course are going to be very important, you do push those dew points up into the 60s, but even so, if you look in eastern North Carolina, there's a little bit of a green shading there. Those dew points are in the low 60s or even the upper 50s. So it's not the strongest push. If I were to see 60 dew points going up into upstate New York and dew points in the upper 60s through Virginia and North Carolina, then I'd say, yeah, probably a good shot for severe weather. But here it is a bit more problematic. And the other thing is, when you look at the wind flow from Virginia eastward and northward, those winds are all southerly, coming into New Jersey, coming into southern New England and Long Island, and there's going to be some marine influence in there cooling things down. So that's going to really limit how much heating occurs. And notice the drier air on the other side, dew points in the 40s, 30s, 20s, and even dew points in the teens. But I'm going to jump back and go to the temperature map here so we can take a look. And after Friday, we'll get some cooler air coming down behind that system as it strengthens up and moves up into New Brunswick. But you've got temperatures Friday afternoon in Wisconsin, on the GFS anyway, in the low and mid 30s. There is that pocket of colder air. Saturday night into Sunday morning, you're seeing some 20s up there and low 30s. So I suppose in those areas where you time it out that the precip comes at night, there might be a little bit of snow. Now, in the east, here's your problem for Sunday. And this is very interesting. With a low going, it literally is going to make my forecast extremely difficult. So this is Sunday afternoon temperatures. The way the GFS is showing this low, it takes it across southern Pennsylvania, right across central New Jersey, probably right along 195, and then moving it out offshore. So you'll notice that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's in the 40s, in the low 40s, in the Hudson Valley, over parts of Long Island, northern New Jersey. It's in the upper 60s and low 70s in central and south Jersey, and it's in the upper 70s and low 80s as you get down into Virginia, North Carolina. So certainly, I could have a day on Sunday in New Jersey, the way the models are showing it, where the highs in North Jersey will be somewhere in the mid to upper 40s, and we could wind up with temperatures reaching up into the 70s in South Jersey. I always want to make some kind of adjustment with the temperatures this time of year, because models are almost always never high enough. But here's how it plays out on the surface. So here's your first low. We're going to use the GFS on this particular sequence here. Low pressure comes out of the southern plains, runs up into Ohio. That warm sector struggles. Here we are at Friday morning. The front is almost right on the PA-Ohio line and extending down into western Virginia, western North Carolina, northern Georgia, moving out. So by Friday evening, it's not too far from the coast. We get whatever we get out of this. And I think it'll probably move along faster and dry out faster. Always remember, this is not actual precip that you see. That's total total precipitation, not the radar echoes. So even though it's showing green over New Jersey, that's from precip that falls in the 6-hour period from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. It's probably going to all fall in the first hour or two after 2 a.m., and all of this will be gone by 3 or 4 a.m. And then out it goes to the east. And here comes your next low. And that low, again, getting suppressed. This was one where the models were lifting it up into western New York and taking it up into Canada, into southeastern Canada. But because this first low is looking deeper, you're going to suppress this to the south. And the European has an even deeper low up in New England, which weakens this second follow-up system even more. If you're looking at the snow area, this is for Saturday night. So I suppose on that northern fringe, you might see, there might be a bit of maybe a light accumulation in parts of southeastern Wisconsin and in through Michigan. Might even see a few wet snowflakes in Chicago out of this as the low goes by, and then that low actually, weakens as it moves eastward. And here it is now, Sunday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That surface low is sitting somewhere, probably. If I want to take the midpoint over Trenton, Philadelphia, the isobars in northern New Jersey are mostly coming in from the east, whereas in South Jersey they're coming in from the southwest. So again, tough forecast as this low moves out near Cape Cod by Sunday evening. I tend to think if there's going to be any rain out of this, it'll be over with by early to mid-afternoon and done. And yeah, there's some snow being shown in parts of upstate New York. I suppose that would just, to me, indicate that there might be some wet snow or some sleet mixed in. And then that low moves away. And now we go into next week. And this is where it gets problematic with, Monday looks fine, but you can already see the next system starting to take shape. Another situation, much like this one tonight, with this frontal boundary setting up to our south, a bit of a warm front there. By Monday night, Tuesday morning, you got some showers running around, and then a low begins to form out in the southern plains. And here's where you have this problem. That frontal boundary running across northern Virginia, the Delmarva Peninsula, northern Virginia, southern Ohio, central Indiana, central Illinois, and back to a low that's up in northeast Missouri and runs up into northern Indiana. That warm front here, going into Wednesday morning, is having a really difficult time near the coast because the models are building a high in southern Canada, and that's kind of pinning the warm front down. This is going to be fun. It's going to be a real struggle and fun going into next week. And while the European wants to argue that after Wednesday, the next high comes down off the Jersey coast, the GFS keeps wanting to hold it into southeastern Canada and creates another situation with an onshore flow for the end of next week. And it's not till late in the week that you finally get the high to drop down east of Cape Cod, but by then you've got a cold front on your doorstep, and once again it would be on a Friday. We've been running a streak here the last 3 Fridays in a row dealing with cold fronts and threats for showers and thunderstorms. So this will be the 3rd Friday, and if the model's right, although I don't know that it is, but the model's right, would be for next Friday. Now, you're south of that frontal boundary, enjoy, because you're going to be fine. Here we are on Tuesday. Virginia, you've got 70s from Maryland into Delaware, and 80s in touching that southernmost area of Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, down through 80s down through Georgia, mid to upper 80s across Florida. You're in the position of where that upper high is building. And we go to Wednesday. Those 80s actually push a shade further to the north, but notice on Wednesday afternoon, the numbers around New York City, for example, and in northern Pennsylvania, they're only in the 50s and the 40s in upstate New York and New England. And on Thursday, one more time, 50s in through New Jersey, 80s from southernmost Delaware down in through Virginia and North Carolina. And then on Friday, you start to get, of course, the next frontal system. Again, once again, with the GFS at least, it keeps saying the upper ridge is not going to help you. That it's the surface high to the north, the onshore flow is going to be really problematic through much of next week. Warm patterns this time of year are extremely difficult to accomplish. You know, you could put a situation together where you could get the odd, very warm day or two if you're lucky. But to string together anything more than that, you really need an almost perfect setup in the upper atmosphere. And you're just not seeing it here, unfortunately. You are getting that ridge in the east, but it's not helping you because the surface is going to be all wrong. Such is life with now almost 50-degree ocean, but not quite. Now, here's the rainfall, by the way, from WPC. I don't have too many arguments with this. A lot of it concentrated through the middle Mississippi Valley and back through the central and southern plains and across the Gulf states. You get also some heavier rains in parts of the Ohio Valley over the next 7 days. A lot of that is due to you've got the series of these weather systems and dealing with onshore flow and short waves that are going by. And in the Northeast, rainfall amounts are generally on the order of about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch through this time frame. I would think the bulk of this would be from the system for Friday, and not a whole lot coming out of the system for Sunday or whatever sets up here for Tuesday into Wednesday. The front I think is going to be the main driver with regards to total precip. So I guess the best way to describe this pattern, as somebody commented on one of my Facebook posts today, and I think it really says it all. We're having a typical spring. Really, this is about as normal of a spring as we've seen in my area, certainly, over the last 4 or 5 years. People have complained. One of the things I guess that's frustrating to me, paying attention to the weather and doing this for 40 years, springs are to me the worst time of year. Nice weather days are few and far between. You get situations like the one we're in now where you squeeze in a nice day or maybe 2 nice days back to back if you're lucky, and then you got to deal with several days or more of gloom. It's the toughest time of the year to forecast in the Northeast. I also think it's probably of all the seasons, this is the worst one, okay? Because of the fact that you're just out of winter and you really have dealt with whatever you've dealt with through the winter time. You want some warm weather to come. You want weather that you'll be able to do a lot of stuff outdoors. And it just gets extremely frustrating because you have to wait. And then suddenly the switch gets flipped sometime around Memorial Day. You deal with it. One thing I will say, William Huber, about the old saying of March showers bringing April flowers. It's really, it's April showers bringing May flowers. One of the things I did notice is, at least on Long Island, which in these springs where the winter was extended through the month of April, it really delayed a lot of the blooming of trees and the flowers. This year, everything seems to be coming on time. Blooms are opening up around when they should be, which is my area in late April. One of the things that holds things back out on Long Island is especially in Suffolk County, is a lot of days where temperatures have a tough time getting out of the 40s and 50s. 40s early in the month, maybe 50s in this part of the month. And that slows things down. I can remember a few odd years where we had temperatures in the 80s during the month of April, and everything just kind of bursts open in one day and gone. So if you love the look of spring and the everything in bloom and the flowers and the beautiful colors, you kind of want it to be on the cool side because it slows everything down. Scott Burler pointing out that the low temperature in the nation was only 20 in 3 spots in Michigan, not including Alaska. It's a pretty good sign that spring is taking hold. Let's see. Just running through your chat comments. Robert Brown in Goldsboro, North Carolina, for the air show this weekend. The high was 87. Nice. Get the water temperature to catch up soon, and you can go to the beach. It takes a little while. I love the Outer Banks of North Carolina. It's one of my favorite places. Let me roll down here. Well, the humidity, Johnny Quest. Let's hope it's not. I really hope it isn't. The humidity last year, particularly in the latter part of the summer and the first part of the fall, was incredibly oppressive. And I really don't want to have to go through all that again. John Perry, you know what? I'm not complaining, and everyone in Massachusetts shouldn't be complaining. We haven't had that much snow, so cry me a river. Yeah, you really haven't. This was an off year, particularly for the coastal, part of the I-95 corridor. Certainly. Can I go over the forecasted amount of tropical cyclones for this year? Says Ryan. Asks Ryan Ford. All right, I'll tell you what, Ryan. I can't do it now because I'm running out of time. But I will. I'll set something up on one of these live streams and do it. I'll just, in general, from what I've been reading, the tropical cyclone forecast that I've seen so far from Colorado State University, calling for what looks to be an average year in the Atlantic, or maybe slightly above average in terms of the total number of storms, and maybe slightly below average in terms of those storms, the number of storms becoming hurricanes. And the reason for this is, of course, the El Nino. And I'm going to see if I can really quick. I'll pull up the latest. This is just going to be a really fast view here as far as the anomalies with the sea surface temperatures. Now, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, not too many days ago, I should say, that I noticed when I last looked a couple of weeks ago that there was some cooling water going on off the coast of South America, trying to work its way up toward Panama and from north of the equator. But as I'm looking here on the latest sea surface temperature anomaly map, and one of the big issues with when you deal with this stuff is that I noticed that in a number of instances where the sea surface temperature profiles can change rather quickly, and we still have along the equator a pocket of above normal water temperatures running from off the coast of South America straight westward. It's a fairly narrow band. It's not as if the Pacific is on fire. Okay, the El Nino still looks relatively weak. So I think the question is whether we wind up seeing the El Nino start to weaken as we move into the summer months, and that could add to development on the Atlantic side later in the season. Perhaps the season is going to be more back end loaded than front end loaded. I don't know. I'm just saying that. I have no reason. I have nothing to back that up. But we'll see. In the meantime, if you'll notice in the Atlantic, north of 40 degrees north, two things going on. The And I guess I should have to try to pull up some tighter maps to see. It looks like there's a big pocket of above normal temperatures sitting right off the coast of Long Island and New Jersey and off Delmarva and Virginia. That big blotch of red there is like this big warm eddy that's sitting out there. And if you look really close, you can kind of make out the Gulf Stream. It goes out to about the southeast of Newfoundland there, and then you just kind of lose it at that point. There's a lot of pockets of colder than average temperatures south of Greenland, but warmer than average as you get closer to Greenland and Iceland. And in the tropical Atlantic, I don't know if you remember from last year, but we had the colder than normal temperatures through much of June and into July in the tropical Atlantic, and then it warmed up and got back to near normal as we got into August. Right this year, not seeing too much. It looks like the ocean water temperatures in the Atlantic are fairly close to average. A few little pockets there east of the Leeward Islands and running up along 20 degrees north. That's a little bit below, and also seeing a little bit below normal temperatures in parts of the Caribbean and in the Gulf of Mexico. But no huge anomalies, okay? We're not seeing huge anomalies, just some minor anomalies there. So we'll, being that it's April 24th, so it's still pretty early. The hurricane season in the Pacific is not going to get underway for another 21 days. So that starts on May 15th, and the Atlantic hurricane season doesn't start until June 1st. So we'll from time to time over the next couple of weeks, we'll look at a few different things going on. I just like in the winter time, I don't do long range forecasting, and the same applies with regards to hurricanes. Certainly, it's okay to look at stuff and try to come up with some idea. I don't have any problem doing that, but in terms of coming out with some sort of specific numbers, I just don't do that. I leave that for people that are really into the long range. It's never been my thing. You guys that are here regularly know that it's not my thing. Let's get a little closer. Maybe we can get a better feel for what's happening with regards to some of the longer term things that impact tropical cyclone development. I think an important thing to watch is the Pacific during the first part of the hurricane season. Let's see if it gets off to a gangbusters start once their season gets underway. That'll be certainly an indicator of just how the El Nino is impacting, because if it's an El Nino year, the East Pacific should be pretty busy, and that'll be a clue going forward. But we gotta wait. It's still too early. Okay, let's leave it at that. Thanks for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. As always, I'm always thrilled that you guys are on here. A number of you are here every single day, and I think that's great. Thank you so much for being here. We did not do a Joe and Joe weather show tonight. There wasn't a whole lot going on. I imagine that we will try and do one tonight on my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and that'll be at 9:25-ish Eastern Time, and then I will try and upload that show onto YouTube. In case you don't have Facebook, you can watch it there, okay? So, thanks for being here. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We will see you tomorrow.